Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and this is one of our end of the year specials. This is going to be our top 10 TV episodes of 2017. So these are single episodes. We were still going to keep this relatively spoiler free. We're going to do our best to not actually spoil details too much, because obviously the chances of seeing all 10 of these, they're slim. You've seen some of them probably, and not all of them. But we're going to do this, and again, much like the other lists, we have came together, we have talked about it, and we have assembled a unified top 10 for this show.
Yeah.
And we're going to go through them. So that's the plan. I have very little else to intro, so I guess we can we could just jump right in.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say is some shows might be, on other lists that you'd expect us to have episodes from, but they were just so consistent that there wasn't any, standout individual episodes.
Yeah. Also,
So,
it's worth mentioning as well, much like last year, we have a rule. We only allow one episode per show on this list.
yes, to stop it getting overly weighted by a certain couple of shows that
Yeah.
usually kind of
Yeah,
dominate.
there could have been like maybe 3 or 4 shows total, but just episodes from those like shows. But we don't want that to happen. We want to point out standout episodes from a lot of shows. So, top 10 TV episodes. So we'll get started. No honorable mentions, partly because it's hard to think of these honestly. So just the straight top 10, and we'll get cracking. So the first one up, number 10, is Godless episode 7, Homecoming. This is the finale of Godless, which was a limited series this year, and this wins. I mean, there was competition for this as to what episode of this would be picked. Some of these,
Yeah.
some of these shows it was obvious. Some of these it was more like, oh, it's between 2 or 3 because there was 2 or 3 standout episodes. This is the finale. This one was picked because it's got the big showdown. It is action packed. It has good gunfights.
It's ultimately why the show exists. Because
Yep.
a lot of the show exists just to be a visual spectacle, and that's okay because it's a fantastic visual spectacle, and this just goes above and beyond in that.
Yeah, everything's building up to this, and it gives it. It's a longer episode. I mean, they were all long episodes. They were all like 70 minutes long, so it was quite a lengthy show to watch. The time flew in, admittedly,
Yes.
so it was well handled. But this episode was a little bit longer, and it was like a good 30 minutes of this was just purely this fight in the final, and people are dying left and right. There's big moments happening, fist pumping moments, crowd cheering moments, and then there's moments that aren't quite that. There's tense moments. For a show that was very derivative of other westerns for the most part, which wasn't a complaint. It was just kind of a typical, traditional western. That was kind of the point.
It did have some surprising moments at the end.
Yeah, in the finale, there was a couple of subversion sort of moments, and
Yes.
that was nice. So. And ultimately, it paid off everything that had been building up to for 7 episodes. That's not to say that the rest of our stuff is all finales, because that would be a very easy thing to do.
Yeah, I think I make a point of not just giving things to finales all the time because,
Yeah.
like you say, it's really easy to just go, well, that paid off all the stuff, so that must be the best. But that's not the case.
That's not always true. There's 2 or 3, but that's
There
about
is a
it.
couple, but we mostly avoided the trap for on the whole.
So number 9 is The Expanse, Season 2, Episode 5, Home. And what's funny about this episode, this is not a finale, but in a weird way it kind of is.
It plays like one.
Because it's the end of the first book. The show's based on a series of books, and the middle of the season, episode 5, is where the first book ends, and then episode 6 is where the second book begins. So in a weird way, it kind of is a finale, but it isn't. This doesn't fall into a rule, or trying to avoid always just doing finales.
It's half there, but if you don't have that knowledge of this is where that book ends, if no one's told you that, if you've not read them, if it's not been pointed out to you, it's just a phenomenal episode.
I think you could guess based on how climactic it feels.
I mean, you probably could, but yeah. But
Yeah.
it's not necessarily there. I mean, you can figure it out, but you don't need to know.
Yeah, it's a really emotional episode, a really exciting episode. It's a big character moment for one of the main characters from the start of the show. It's a somewhat surprising conclusion to the plotline, I think.
It is. It definitely subverts what you expect, and some visual showcases as well.
Oh yeah, and it sets up this new status quo and this new mystery going forward. which is great. And there's a lot of like tension as well. There's a lot of characters running out of air, like on a spacewalk, and like they're like.
It's a very, very tight episode.
Yeah, and ultimately there's some real. And it's a conflict as well that's happening that's affecting everyone. Everyone's kind of aware of it. The people on Earth are aware of it. The people on Mars are sort of watching and keeping track of it. Everyone's kind of it's this solar system event. Everyone in the solar system is paying attention to it. It's a big deal, and it really kind of sets. I mean, because we know so much about the proto-molecule, which is kind of the MacGuffin, if you will, of the Expanse. We know so much about it at this point, but this episode actually gives us new things.
It blows it wide open, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it's a big character episode, big mythology episode, and then on top of that, it's a showpiece for effects and like excitement. So
great episode.
Not a lot to fault with it. Number 8 is Stranger Things, Season 2, Chapter 9, The Gate. Now this is a finale, and this was actually one that was debated quite heavily. This and Chapter 8 were both kind of up for the pick
they
here.
were, yeah.
And we ultimately went with 9. I mean, let's be honest, largely just because Eleven's kind of in that episode and she's not really in a lot of 8.
Yeah, it's a lot of that. It's a lot that you have the showdown that you'd expect in the final episode. It's we called it very video game-esque in the best possible way.
I think for me, I would really kind of say that 6, 8, and 9 are this trilogy of episodes that kind of all just slot together as one big thing. But we have to pick one episode, and I think you go with 9. For me, it's honestly a lot of it's the epilogue stuff, which again we won't spoil.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it has the benefit of having these extra character moments at the end that after the threat has been dealt with in the way that obviously the episodes leading up to are all about the threat.
Yeah. Everything's just going down in episode 8, whereas episode 9 has this after moment where everyone gets to calm down a little bit again. There's a sort of and I think the ending is stronger than season 1. I think season 1 as a season is more consistent. I think season 2, that trilogy of episodes, actually beats the conclusion to season 1.
No, I agree with that. That trilogy there is definitely stronger, but season 1's definitely more consistent for sure. Yeah,
more consistent. Which one you prefer? I think is just out of taste, honestly. But I think this finale's got a big thing to do with that. Like I say, it gives you some more of those down moments afterwards. There's some really solid action on multiple fronts during the episode. The fight to like sort of beat the enemy, if you will. I'm avoiding using specific words just for spoilers' sake.
It's why I said threat.
Yes. Stranger Things. It's everything you want from Stranger Things. It's the kids doing smart things, being little heroes. It's characters that have grown in season 2, kind of reaching this big climax that. I didn't like that person in season 1. Oh, I kind of do now. Season 2 has made me a believer.
It is.
So, number 7 is Legion, Chapter 1.
This is interesting in itself because we've just been talking about how it's easy to fall in the trap of final episodes. I think for some things it's easy to fall in that trap for the first episodes as well, because often first episodes are a showcase of this is what it's going to be.
See, it's funny you say that, but I feel like I'd say it's less than half the time. I feel like more than half the time the first episode suffers because it has to introduce everything.
Yeah, it can go either way. It's like it can feel bogged down, or it can be this is a showcase.
But when you have Noah Hawley doing a TV show, and you have this show which is playing with you've got a character who's A, in a mental institute, and B, has telepathic powers of some kind, and you're playing with what is real, what is not. How does he perceive the world around him because of his condition, because of his powers, in addition to the medication he's taking, in addition to anything else that's going on. It was a puzzle of an episode that is intentionally you have to
it's a maze.
You have to kind of put it together, and then by the end of the episode, the payoff to everything that's happened, there's this big end of the first episode, and I was emotionally invested in what happens at the end of it. Yeah,
and it has a phenomenal action sequence.
Yeah. There's a big one-shot moment at the end
that goes on for it's a good length for this one-shot sequence.
Yeah, it's very well done, and the characters are instantly memorable. All the main players And the show's got a style. It's got that, much like Fargo does. It's got that kind of sort of just dark tinge of humor added.
It's got its own tone, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's got a very unique tone. Cast are very good, of course, and no, it's just an episode to sort of blow, because I think episodes 2 and 3 were probably the weakest of the season, just because they felt the need to, like, no, we need to simplify all this now.
Play catch up a little.
Yeah.
Whereas 1 just threw you in the deep end and went, you're gonna like it or you're not.
But then you got to 4, and it's okay, the plot really got moving, then it got really good again. But not 2 and 3 are bad; they're fine. But they definitely had to simplify things up and sort of, okay, let's explain what was going on, because we had all sorts of crazy theories after episode 1. The episodes 2 and 3 kind of just quickly said, no, don't worry. Like,
it's this is it. Just we wanted to kind of blow your minds at the start, tell you the reality of what it was, so that we can then go in crazy directions from here.
Yeah, because later on, when you understand the rules a little bit better and you understand what it's doing when it's going nuts, it works really well, and you feel like what's going on is a different type of superhero show. So I highly recommend Legion if you've not checked it out yet. Now, admittedly, some people don't like the show, and they knew from this episode they would hate it, and I think that's actually a testament to it, that if you like this first episode, you will love the show. If you don't, run.
It's not for you, yeah.
Run the other direction. But I appreciate
it doesn't hide what it is.
No, it does not. But I think it's the most unique superhero show, certainly.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to even call it that, I mean, it's debatable if you can even use the word superhero.
Yeah.
But
it's at a stretch.
It's mutants and it's related to the X-Men, so you kind of go along with that.
Yeah.
Number 6 is actually another superhero show. It's another Marvel show, actually. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Season 4, Episode 15, which is the finale of the arc. Because S.H.I.E.L.D. last season, if you didn't know, was actually split into 3 smaller arcs. You had an 8-episode arc and 2 7-episode arcs. This was the finale of the middle arc, called LMD. And this, I mean, S.H.I.E.L.D. we've greatly enjoyed for a long time. It's had standout episodes before. Everyone remembers the one, The Planet, from Season 3. The one with the premonitions from Season 3 as well is another big one that comes up. And most of this arc had been really good. This final episode, not only does it set up the final arc of the season in a lot of cool ways, the stuff it did with the characters, the tension where the characters, and again, keeping this mostly spoiler free, I will just say that LMD, the arc, is about androids, about robots, and the tension in this episode with some of them not sure if their friends are actually their friends or if they're a robot in disguise.
Yeah, it's very much of who can we trust.
Yeah, it's a paranoid episode. It's also full of great sort of Terminator callbacks and like synth music and all these other cool wacky ideas.
Yeah, like I say, it has these amazing,
plot beats,
character moments, but it also has some great action sequences in there too.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely does. There's some great stuff with Quake and using her powers in the middle of a fight. There's some
it gets inventive.
Gory stuff with that. And the characters fighting back, you really, really root for them to fight back. And like I say, the tension when one of them suspects the other of being a robot is phenomenal. And it's all, and you're on the edge of your seat, sort of trying to figure it out. And it's funny, we praise Legion for being a very unique superhero show. I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I mean, it is unique. It's not as unique as Legion. But Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is just done so well. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
It takes what the sort of ideas you'd expect from that style of show and does them to perfection.
And it is. And I'm not just doing this so I can get my reference to the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer in, but because it does come in part from Whedon. It's Whedon's brother and sister-in-law who are actually the showrunners on it. It does have that Scooby Gang quality to it, where you've got this core team that you really care about, and you care about their interactions, you care about how they feel about each other.
And that's why it's so frustrating, this episode, in the sense that, we say, it's who can trust who, and so you have this gang that are so close, really questioning each other, and it kind of makes them alone, even though they're in the room together.
That's what gives it the weight, it's what gives it the drama, it's because you care that one of them might not be who they say they are, because it makes you wonder then, if they're not who they say they are, where's the real person? And I'm worried about them now.
Yeah, and who else is real or not real? Yeah, it's a whole worm. Like, I
remember being blown away. I remember us finishing this episode, going to record the review, and just flat out saying in the review, this is the best episode the show's ever done. I mean, didn't even have to think about it. There was no question.
It absolutely has the best scene of the show as well.
Yeah. And it's a testament as well that the arc that followed up was fantastic, had lots of great moments. The arc that's on right now in Season 5, also fantastic.
Yeah, the arc the third arc of that season might have been more consistent.
Yeah, I may agree with that.
But this episode just was something special.
So number 5 is The Handmaid's Tale, episode 3, season 1, of course, because only one season. It's called Late, and Handmaid's Tale was shockingly consistent throughout its season.
It was.
It was spectacular TV. It was high level, high power, and it was exciting when it came because it came in at a time when a lot of other things were being delayed. We did have Better Call Saul at the same time, but this came out of nowhere and kind of became another big thing, another big sort of pillar of like our TV year, where now like season 2 is something we're actively like, okay, I can't wait for Handmaid's Tale season 2.
Yeah, and it looks like it's on schedule.
Yeah, and episode 1 was fantastic. Episode 2 was great. Episode 3, and the reason why it's picked, because there's a couple of options. This was one where, again, we debated over like 3 different options. There was like 2 later episodes. I think it was 7 and 9. We debated picking as well. And I think 3 maybe stands out. There was so many moments in 3 where it explored this world where the handmaids are there to give babies to the commanders, and the way that the awful wife, played by Yvonne Strahovski, treats her in this one because she thinks she's pregnant. That's what the title's referring to.
The shift in demeanour.
Yeah, so that's what the late means, and it's how differently she's treated when they think she's become useful. She's one of these, because pregnancy has become a more of a rare thing. And the handmaids are chosen, of course, because they can get pregnant. They've proven to actually be able to do this now, whereas a lot of women can't in this world. And we'll leave it there. I don't want to spoil anything. That's just the premise of the show, essentially. But the emotions, the way it plays with moments, there's a fantastic scene in this episode where it's all one shot, but it's not a fancy shot. It's not the camera's moving around. It's not one of these action scenes. It's just
it knows what it's doing.
It's just sitting there at a table. It is so confident filmmaking.
Yeah.
And it stays with our main character, Offred, as she's sitting there, and there's other characters walking in and out of the scene, and it's just showing you how she feels weird because she's been sat there and she's been seen to in a way she's not since this has all went down.
Yeah.
In the world.
And on an extra level, for me, this is the episode that got me properly hooked on the show. Hulu released the first 3 episodes at once, and the first 2 are still very good episodes, don't get me wrong. But I was like, okay, I'm down for this. I'm enjoying this. This is good. This is very good. But it was episode 3 that made me go, no, I need to get more of this. It's
set up this established thing. There's this cycle of emotion that goes through in that show, where there's a little bit of hope for something, and then you come crashing down further than you've ever done before. And I remember at the end of this one just feeling painful.
Oh yeah, it was a kick in the guts, wasn't it?
So that'll take us on to number 4, which is Dear White People, Chapter 5. By the way, I just want to point out, it's notable how many episodes or shows this year just had either episode number or chapter something or part something. It was, there was no titles. It was just a number.
I mean, and even the ones that had to, like Stranger Things, had titles, but it was still in chapters.
Yeah, that's a thing. So yeah, episode 5 of Dear White People is a phenomenal. We like the whole show. The season is great. Episode 5 is the standout episode.
Yeah, like 80% of the episode is just a very good episode.
Yeah, it's on par with the rest of the season. It's consistent. All the episodes of Dear White People kind of focus on one character. It's a character study of that one person. Now, it all comes together to form a sort of interwoven story of the whole thing.
It does. Yeah.
But it focuses on one character's perspective per episode. And we focus on this character. And we can't spoil anything. We'll just say that the final 5 minutes is some of the most tense and realistic television I think we have ever seen.
Genuinely terrifying, because it's one of the rare times I'm watching a TV show where I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I genuinely just didn't know.
And then it's especially terrifying. Like we talk about things being terrifying anyway. This was terrifying because this just feels like a real thing.
Yeah,
it just feels like something that's actually happening, and the acting in the scene is phenomenal. The way it's directed is phenomenal. It captures the moment perfectly. It captures what it feels like to be in that moment. At least it's the best we can guess, having not been in the moment.
And we mentioned with The Expanse how that episode kind of set up a lot of things for the rest of the season. Kind of was a bit of a status quo change. This was the same, where everything shifted after this. Like, it was all like, okay, no, this is the new focus for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a phenomenal episode.
It really was, yeah.
I think this is the episode where, like, the rest of the show, as we say, is great. But I think this is the episode where you're saying, no, you need to watch Dear White People. It's because of this episode.
Like, this is the thing. Like we say, there's that 5-10 minutes at the end that are the truly special part. And the rest of this episode could have been borderline bad. And this would still probably make the list with how good that ending is. The
rest of the episode is good, and what it's doing for the rest of the episode is setting up a character well enough that final 5 minutes works as well as it does.
Oh, yeah.
That's the beauty of it, is it works completely in sync.
Yeah, you don't realise what it's heading towards until afterwards, where you look back and it all kind of plays nicely.
And it's a show that deals with current events, of course, and current issues. And I think it's the sort of thing where if you want to broaden your horizons a little bit and get especially, I mean, obviously I'm sure a lot of black people will watch the show, but I think for everyone else who isn't a black person, I feel like this is a show where, the great thing about art is that it can let you see things through other people's lenses, through other people's eyes. And I feel like this show does that in an extremely intelligent, witty, and in this episode's case, scary capacity.
Absolutely.
So, episode 5 of Dear White People. Number 3, Mr. Robot, Season 3, Episode 5. I didn't write down the full title, I just wrote down Runtime Error. If you know Mr. Robot, you'll know it's actually...
Yeah, it'll have been, what, EPS 3.4
_ runtime error ... and then a file name.
Yes.
But I just wrote down Runtime Error. Again, this was a heavily debated pick for what was Mr. Robot's choice, because this is episode 5, this is the one that is presented as one shot, as one take. The entire episode is fluid. As one camera movement, or not one movement, but one camera take. No, obviously there's tricks. They actually didn't film it that way.
Of course, and if you're looking for them, you can see them. It's fine.
Yeah, if you know the tricks, you'll know where they are. But it's an extremely impressive episode. You could call it a gimmick, but the thing is that it actually fits perfectly with what's going on in the episode, because we've been building up to this thing happening on this day. So then we get this countdown to the thing happening. In one building throughout this episode, and our main character's trying to stop it, and it's just it's riveting stuff, and it does this great thing where it mirrors and it swaps to another character halfway through, and like that's an even better half of the episode, honestly, when it gets there.
Yeah, which is crazy, because you would never have seen that coming.
Yeah, but like I said, this was heavily debated. I could have easily rooted for episode 1 to hit in here. I could have rooted for episode 8, which was a more downbeat episode, but the emotional climax at the end of that episode was fantastic.
Yeah, like this thing, Mr. Robot had many phenomenal episodes this season, all of them for different reasons. Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned episode 1. Episode 1 was the one that made our brains go crazy with theories in ways that none of the other episodes probably did.
That shook up the concept of Mr. Robot and made us excited about what they were playing with this season.
Yeah.
5 was
a technical masterpiece,
tension, and then the way it ends with that emotional beat at the end, it's just like, hey, this has to be answered for at the end, as it cuts to black.
Yeah. Great.
And I think ultimately, when we were picking one and we were like, okay, what do we pick? I think we go with 5, because A, it is a technical masterpiece, B, it fits so well in its plot for what it's doing with its camera work. But I think I love how inventive it is in different ways. Like, it seeds into this mythology stuff. There's always this news footage playing in the elevators whenever we're in there. That's feeding us information. The fact that we do switch character, and the character we have in the second half gets even more advanced in this. We see how desperate this character is to pull this job off and do this thing. And I feel like that growth for that character, who arguably was nowhere near as interesting at the start of the show, who has now become arguably almost equal as interesting as the main character.
Yeah, definitely.
If not, then close to.
Yeah, definitely up there.
It's phenomenal, and it's not just this episode that's responsible for that. But I think we're already starting to feel it a lot earlier on in the season, maybe at the end of last season too, and more afterwards. But I think
this tells you no. This is why.
Yeah.
This is why we're doing this. So we can do things like this, and you already care enough, based on what we're saying. We built up to this, but this is justifying why we did those things.
Yeah. That said, if you wanted to argue episode 1 or 8, I can't really fight you on it that much.
That's it. They're so good but it's almost taste as to which version, what you prefer out of your episodes at that point.
It really is. And some people may argue 10. And
Yeah, okay.
I couldn't really argue that either.
I
So
honestly, I think the only one I would really fight someone on is episode 3.
yeah, well, it was good, but not as amazing as the rest.
Yeah, it's solid, but it stands out as the weakest of the
Or,
season.
or 9, actually. 9 was a bit more just setting things up for the finale, so that wasn't as amazing on its own.
Okay, that's fair as well. 3 and 9.
3 and 9. But any of the other
But
episodes I'd accept.
out of 10, that's still, a lot of amazing episodes.
Yeah, so there you go. Number 2 is Better Call Saul, episode 5 of season 3 this year, Chicanery. Now,
Oh boy.
we spoke about how episodes can be climactic, even if they're not the finale. This was not climactic just for this half of the season. This was climactic for the 2.5 seasons of this show so far.
Yeah.
This was a payoff to 2.5 years of plot. And it was a big character episode, of course, and the way it handled the character in question, who got their chance to shine, who got their chance to act their ass off for a start from the actor's perspective.
Yeah.
It played it off in so many great ways. I can't even begin to sort of describe the emotional roller coaster, and just how, even though you can kind of see what's coming, just seeing it actually happening is so...
It unfolds in front of you, and just as you're realizing it's just happening and it's too late.
Yeah, it's like watching... I'm trying to compare it. It's like you're watching like a child who's playing near a pool, and you know they're going to fall in.
Yeah.
You know it's eventually going to happen, and they keep getting closer, and they keep just saving themselves at the last second, over and over again. And that's over the course of the 2.5 seasons. They just keep doing it.
And it catches you off guard because you go, okay, well, they're just going to save themselves again.
Yeah, they're so confident. And then they finally do it. They finally stumble and go head first into the pool.
Yeah.
And those moments are just, so good.
It is.
And I feel like there's so much good work in. I think what this season did as well is that we had a certain perspective on this character for the first 2 seasons. And this season kind of challenged it and said, hey, maybe you've villainized this character when you shouldn't have for these reasons.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
there's actually a real world context to look at this guy and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe, because it's a moment when a certain character confronts Saul. It's like, I don't want to say the line, but like I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And I feel it plays into this episode because even though you feel like, oh, Saul's won, he's victorious, it's like, but at what cost?
Kind of a hollow victory, isn't it? Do you know what? I think it's interesting. Just looking at our list of what we've chosen here up till this point, we were saying how we made a really conscious choice not to choose like ending episodes of seasons for the reason that we said earlier. We have a lot of middle episodes.
We do, actually,
and I think it's interesting that a lot of them we've said they do this thing where they take our expectations and they subvert for the rest of the season onwards in ways that usually, I think up till recently, we've not really seen on TV. It's kind of been, the season's very strictly defined. Whereas now it's feeling a bit more fluid where I'm going, no, things are changing from here to the end now.
And I think, again, just to go back to that idea of the hollow victory and or changing our perceptions, I feel like for the first 2 seasons we were anticipating this with yes, take him down. But when it actually happens, it's like you feel a little bit upset. You feel like, this is not as clear cut. There's more layers to this.
I get why it's been done, but I don't know if I really wanted to watch that like that.
It's almost uncomfortable.
Yeah,
in a good way, in the best possible way. So
it's just phenomenal stuff. It's again in a fantastic TV show. This is probably the best episode of the show.
By the way, for the record, some of these we debated between like 3 episodes. This one was no debate. This one was that episode of Better Call Saul is the one. There was no even thinking about it twice.
I think it might be the episode of the show. I really do.
Yeah, very well might be. Which takes us to number 1.
The most coveted spot in our awards.
Twin Peaks: The Return, Part 8.
Which, if you watched our reviews of Twin Peaks: The Return, this is probably not very surprising.
It's probably not, especially since, we'd been going about an hour per review. We're maybe starting to dip into an hour 20, hour 30 almost. This hit an hour 40 at a time when we hadn't hit 90 minutes yet. And it was super long. We debated so much. And this was such a different episode. It was such a balls-out, wacky episode where it was a regular episode for maybe 10 minutes, and then it changed.
And it became an art showpiece.
Yeah. And Connor actually said something very brass at the start of that review, which still gets negative comments to this day on YouTube. In fact, there was one today.
I'm sure there was. It doesn't surprise me.
Because we were saying how, like, as much as this was very artsy, as much as, a lot of it was in black and white and silent, which, by the way, is silent for like 30 minutes. There's 30 minutes without dialogue. It's amazing. But Connor started out with saying, when you cut through all the artsy-fartsy bullshit, that comment is still getting negative reviews.
Yeah. It wasn't intended in that way. I didn't mean it derivatively. I didn't mean that in a negative way. Mm-hmm. I was just I say that with from a place of love. It's artsy fartsy bullshit sometimes. Like things are sometimes, and that's fine. Yeah. I like that.
I knew what the reaction was going to be though, so I thought on it immediately.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I immediately said, "Don't say that."
I stand by what I said. It's all about context. I'm not saying that it's bad. Like bullshit is not going, it's bad. It's it's artsy fartsy bullshit. It's it's up in the air.
So, give me your negative comments, people. I'm okay with it. So anything tells him he's wrong and I'm right.
Honestly, there are I expect way more negative comments based on other opinions I had in that episode, which I stand by, even though I agree that this is the best episode of the year.
I don't think that there were actually.
It's just surprising to me.
Yeah, but I think they enjoyed the debate of that portion.
Yeah, because we fundamentally disagreed on
one element,
essentially a large point of the episode.
Yeah, a large part of the episode. But this was an episode that took the Twin Peaks mythology and through again a very artistic, almost 2001: A Space Odyssey-esque sort of extended sequence, showed us kind of how the mythology of this show began in concept and how it evolved, and it gave us a look behind the curtain. Almost straight up just kind of answering like big mysterious questions, and gave us this sense of like purposes behind certain things, objects, people, places. All these things kind of started to like have a context, and it did leave us with a lot of questions. It left us with a flat out weird final 10 minutes, which were terrifying for a start, but just downright bizarre, and it made us questioning all these different things. And like just this new thing where there's these 10 minutes of the episode take place in the 50s, which we've never seen in Twin Peaks at all up until this point.
Yeah, no, and like this episode had such an impact in the community in general. I went to a comic convention in September, so this late September after the show had finished airing, and it's one of the pop culture thing of the year. Often gets a lot of artists will kind of take things from that for this convention every year. So of course there was lots of Twin Peaks things. About 80% were things from this episode. Of course there were. There was just so many of this episode because it was something special. I was loving the return before this. This was the episode that justified its existence. This was the episode that said, no, there was something to be told here. This wasn't just, I want to continue and kind of finish the story. This is like, no, I had something artistically to say. And that's what I think, because I fundamentally disagreed with one of the main interpretations of what it could have been saying. And I stand by my disagreement, but that doesn't make it any less like a perfect episode. It doesn't make it any less art, because it's subjective. I have my opinion, but that doesn't make me like it any less. Yeah, wrong opinion, but yeah. Opinions can't be wrong. Why they're opinions, god damn it. That can be wrong. I'll throw this glass at you in a minute. Well, Twin Peaks Party is stunning. Like I was not prepared for what that episode was when I sat down to watch it. You can say that about a lot of David Lynch stuff. To be honest, it almost feels unfair to put it on this list because that was not an episode of TV. No, that was like a transcendent thing that was just on its own. Like that was yeah. I mean, sure, you need the context of Twin Peaks for it to make any sense, obviously, but like it was just such a euphoric individual experience. Obviously, if this episode didn't exist, then yeah, the final 2 episodes would be up for contention. I think it was episode, I want to say 11 was another fantastic one. Yeah, I think it says a lot about this episode, though, that we never even considered those. Oh, of course, choice. Yeah. We just immediately was like, no, this is this. Yeah, like we just said about the Saul. There's a chunk in the middle of this, during the silent section where there was music playing,
I listened to that music on repeats for so long. It was so beautiful and eerie and like sort of like hopeful, but in a sort of dark world kind of. Oh, it was great. There was layers of just beauty. It was beautiful. That's what I'd describe it. It was a beautiful episode.
Yeah.
So that is us. That is our top 10 episodes of TV of 2017. So by all means, let us know what you think of this list. Let us know what your favourite episodes of TV of the year. Try and keep it relatively spoiler free for folk who haven't seen those shows, because essentially you're wanting to sell the show to them to go and watch it and spread the love. If you'd pick other episodes of these shows that we've mentioned, by all means tell us what those would be. Episodes from other shows, of course, as well, that we've not mentioned. Obviously, there's other shows with great episodes that we could have, but these were the 10 that we went with. So do that. But otherwise, get us on the Patreon at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV if you want to support the channel. There'll be a link to that and other useful links in the description. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support, I said that already. Like, subscribe.
You did them out of order. That's why you said at Patreon.
I know. I said them out of order and I completely messed up. But yeah. So yeah, thanks for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?